Says starting. Okay, we've got view lobby 26.
I will admit them all. Hi, good evening, everyone. We want to welcome you to our annual virtual financial aid night. We are joined by myself. I'm Christine Avila. I'm one of the counselors here at Cal High. And we have Kathy Nichols here. She is our college and career advisor. And our presenter, Cora Manuel, from Samuel Merritt University. We're going to take just a minute to get more folks in to the presentation, and then we'll get started in just a moment. Okay, so please note that we do have the chat off, but we have the Q&A available. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can during the chat, but we do highly recommend trying to listen to the presentation. A lot of your questions will be answered in the presentation, and then we'll hold a live Q&A towards the end. So if you want to write those questions down and see if they get answered through the presentation, that'd be great. And we'll try to answer as best we can. For things that are very, very, very specific to you and your family with filling out the financial aid applications. We may need to do that a little offline rather than during this presentation, which is going to be more general information for our populace. Okay. Kathy, anything to add?
No, if any of you have your seniors with you, it would also be pretty good if they can listen in as well, because they do have a portion of the FAFSA itself that they will have to be filling in as well.
All right. And so we'll hand over the mic to Cora.
Thank you so much. And I hope that we can get through almost everything you need to know about financial aid in the next, 30, 35, 40 minutes. So let me see if I can make sure my technology works. And are you able to see my screen? What you need to know about financial aid. So again, my name is Cora Manuel. I am the Associate Director of Financial Aid at Samuel Merritt University in downtown Oakland. And I have been in financial aid for a very long time, over 25 years. So I've seen a few things, but tonight we are going to see if my clicker works, and it doesn't work. So and as we said, technology is great when it works. Let's try this again. Well, it started to work. Try it.
All right. Also for our viewership, this is this is being recorded currently. And so as soon as that recording is available, we'll be posting it on our YouTube. And we'll send a follow-up email as well. Okay.
So let's go back if it will work for me. And it doesn't want to go backwards. Try this again. So this evening, we are going to be going over all of the acronyms that is financial aid, talk about the differences in the categories, types, sources, where all the funds are coming from, talk about the application, both federal and a little bit about the state of California's financial aid applications, some special unusual circumstances, and a few changes that will be happening for 2026-2027 application. So again, what is financial aid? Because mom, dad, you're able to sign those checks for $45,000 a year for a semester. Typically, some can, most can't. So financial aid then is for the families and the students to help pay for those post-secondary educational expenses. First, acronym, COA, cost of attendance. Every school will have this listed on the website. It is a federal requirement so that families have an idea of what it would cost every year to attend a particular school. It will list their tuition, fees. They will have estimates of living on campus, living off campus, living at home. Also estimates about books, supplies, estimates of transportation, again, going back and forth to campus, or again, maybe flying out of state, coming back for the holidays. And then also we include miscellaneous personal expenses because maybe sometimes students are really tired of having on-campus dining, so they may want to go off campus and have a brand new pizza or a different kind of hamburger. So again, we have those estimated there, as well as maybe students want to get a brand new sweatshirt from their campus every year. The Student Aid Index, SAI, is the result of submitting the information on the financial aid applications. It's either the federal application or state of California. Again, it will be looking for what the student can possibly contribute to their expenses and from the parents. Again, looking at the financial resources from both contributors. So at the financial aid offices, again, every campus, every school will have a different cost of attendance. We will subtract out the results of those applications, the Student Aid Index, and we will come up with a financial need number. So this number is what financial aid offices will try to fill with all the good stuff, with the free money, the scholarships, the grants, work study, loans that aren't accruing interest. So financial need is what we look to see how we can help families. So the different categories of financial aid, again, need-based. We all need financial aid, but looking at the information that is provided on applications, again, coming up with that financial need number. So need-based aid, any free scholarships, grants, federal, state. And then on the other hand, we have non-need-based aid. This is not going to look at any of the financial resources of the family. So it can be merit, GPA, talent, athletic, musical, theater. So again, these are different types or different categories of financial aid. Versus the types of financial aid, we have what is considered self-help, which may be four-letter words for students, families, loan, that is a possibility for financial aid, as well as work. Students, you may need to work during the school year in order to either earn funds to help with your expenses, or some schools may even require that you actually have to put in some work hours during the year in order to basically put towards your expenses. Now, the gift aid, again, scholarships and grants, considered free money. So they are not required to be paid back. There may be some requirements on how to renew them. Again, if they're looking at need, if it's looking at GPA, if it's looking at some sort of talent. Again, that's the difference between gift, scholarships, grants versus self-help aid, loans, or work study. So where does all the funds come from? All these various organizations, entities. If you're doing the federal application, the federal government is the largest supplier of funding. States, again, state of California will have their different grants. Colleges and universities, we have our different types of funds available. And they may have different applications, looking at other sources and maybe where parents are working or the students are working. So again, taking a look at various places, there are always information out there. And at the very end of this presentation, there's other resources, other websites, and I know the high school also has different resources that they will be sharing. So for the state of California, again, there are various grants. There's the entitlement award. They will be looking at the applications, whether it's the federal or state, and they will be matching it up to the GPA, the grade point average that was submitted by the high school. And again, you can see that it looks at GPA as well as income and assets. The Middle Class Scholarship, MCS. So this is for students that did not qualify for the Cal Grant because the income and assets were higher than the ceilings. And these are only offered at the University of California, California State University, or the California community colleges that have bachelor's degrees. Again, these will not be awarded until sometime in the summer when students have already decided which school they will be attending. And then these various campuses will be offering these scholarships, the middle class scholarships, to the students. Again, all the colleges and universities, we have our different types of funds. Again, they could be both merit, looking at need, can be gift, aid. Some schools have their own work study programs. Sometimes they have their own loan programs. Again, we're looking at the different information from either the federal application, the state application, or again, checking to see if your specific school that your students will be attending, if they have additional applications. So it's always best to check the websites of the schools they are looking to apply to. Again, deadlines vary and applications vary from school to school. There were some applications that were probably due at the end of December. There were probably some deadlines that were end of January, and some other schools may have another priority date, possibly February 15th. So please definitely look at all the information that is being sent to you by the schools that your students are applying to and their websites, or again, if you're visiting the schools, stopping in at the financial aid office to get this information. Again, looking at other private sources for scholarships and grants. Again, they could be foundations, they can be businesses, they can be, again, Target has some, Coca-Cola, again, looking at those. Starbucks used to have scholarships, again, looking at the different deadlines and applications, but always start looking at these private sources early and to continue looking for outside scholarships the entire time students are enrolled in their college, university career. Employers, again, if parents, if your company where you're working at, they may have scholarship opportunities. If students are also working, they may have opportunities at the jobs that they're at. Again, check out the different educational benefits for employees. Again, for example, when I used to work at St. Mary's College of California in Moraga, as a staff person or faculty, if once I completed 1 full year, I would have been able to have free tuition for my children, up to 5 children. But since I only have a dog, he doesn't qualify. So again, those are the types of things to look for. So here we have the different applications. Most families and students will complete the FAFSA, and that is the free application for federal student aid. Again, that's for students that are citizens, permanent resident aliens. The California Dream Act are for the students that cannot complete the FAFSA. Okay. On the other side is just a copy or a screenshot of the paper copy of the Cal Grant GPA verification form. Not all schools need to use the paper. Again, your school already has submitted the GPAs on behalf of your students, and the California Student Aid Commission has already started awarding and matching the information from the GPA, as well as those students that have already completed either the FAFSA, free application federal student aid, or the California Dream Act. So again, both applications, they're going to be collecting demographic and financial information from both student and parent. It's used to calculate the student aid index. Again, that's what the schools will be using to offer financial aid. Again, it's also available in different languages. I hope that it was that students have already started doing it, completing the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application. It was slated to open October 1st, but it actually opened up earlier in September. So actually I completed my FAFSA in September and it didn't take too long. But please, please, please make sure that you are completing the correct FAFSA for the correct FAFSA year. There are actually 2 of them available. And again, checking with the schools if there is a priority date to submit either the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application. Again, the best thing about doing it online is it is much quicker. Years and years and years ago, when it was paper and you had to complete it, sign it, mail it off, it can take up to 8 weeks to process those applications. Doing it online, it's now 3 days. There's built-in edits. The greatest thing I feel is that there's skip logic. So if you answer certain questions a certain way, it may allow you to skip about 20 questions. Okay, you don't need to enter any of the information from your federal tax returns. There is now the ability to authorize IRS to just transfer it for you. So you don't need to look for each line and how to put it in, so it's there. Again, timely submission, as long as it's submitted by the priority date or that the school is requesting. If you need to make corrections, it's fine, as long as you hit it, complete it before that first priority date. There's a lot of help, buttons, bubbles on the FAFSA, and then again, online, you can check the application. Parents and students, you will need to complete a FSA password. Students will use that to log in, password, FSA ID and password. They will use that to complete the FAFSA. The DREAM Act application has a similar ID. Parents will also need one to sign the federal application, and these will follow you for the rest of your lives because they are tied to the Social Security number, and you will need to do a FAFSA every year should you require and need federal assistance. So again, online, please make sure that if you're completing the FAFSA for first year, that begins in the fall of 26, please complete the 26-27 FAFSA. There is also this current year FAFSA that is still available for 2025-26. So again, making sure that looking at the correct FAFSA, I have had several families say I completed the FAFSA but then missed the deadlines because they completed the wrong one. So again, please make sure you are looking at the right year. Okay, so the Future Act, Direct Data Exchange, the FADDX, Again, this is the law that allows on the free application of federal student aid, the FAFSA, to authorize the IRS to transfer all that federal income tax return information onto the application. Consent is required by all contributors. If it's married, filed joint, it's fine, just one. But if it's married, filing individually, then again, both contributors will need to consent to have the information transferred. Again, student information, who they are, contact information, please use legal names. Again, I go by Cora Manuel, but my FAFSA says Corazon Manuel, so they can match that up. Again, it will ask for students' marital status, college plans, listing the different colleges the students are looking to submit admission applications. If there's some personal unusual circumstances, some of that can be noted on the FAFSA, but most of the time it will need to go in a different process, and we will talk about that later on in this presentation. A lot of the questions I get is, when can I, the parent, stop providing the information on the FAFSA because they will be turning 18 and the law says they're independent students. Some laws do, absolutely, but the federal government says students will be considered dependent and will require parent information until they're over the age of 24, if they're married, if they've already gotten their bachelor's degree and are looking to get their master's or doctorate. Again, are they active duty military? Are they veterans? So parents, you will still need to complete the FAFSA and for pretty much the 4 years that they will be requiring aid for their undergraduate bachelor's degree. Okay, students will be asked tax return information if they happen to file, if they have assets, again, if they have cash in their checking account, savings account, that needs to be reported. They will add up to 20 schools the first time around to receive the information on the applications. So they, at this point, they can review the information and then sign it electronically using their FSA ID and password. At that point, they will then invite the parent to complete their portion on the FAFSA. This year, it's a little bit easier than what happened last year. I don't know if some of you have already completed it for older siblings where it was a bit of a mess, but now it's just looking at give a address or an email address, a valid one, or just sharing the link. So that'll be easier for parents to log in and complete that information. Accepting the email invitation, using the link. Again, parents will sign in using FSA ID and password to access the federal application. Slightly similar for the California DREAM Act application, but again, it's still parents will need to sign in and complete their portion, which is again, identity, contact information, consenting to transfer the tax information from IRS, marital status, state of legal residence. Again, California, students' residency looks at the parents' residency. So again, the Cal Grant looks at where the parents have been living for the last few years. Parent information, again, they're looking at other different federal benefits, tax filing status, how many are in the family, how many will be attending college in the fall, again, transferring the information, assets will need to be reported. Again, we're only looking at accessible cash, checking, savings accounts. We are not going to be reporting any retirement accounts, 401s, KIOs, IRAs, those are not reported on the FAFSA. Neither is the value of the primary home. So again, those will not be reported. If you have other assets such as vacation homes, rental property, again, that will be reported on the FAFSA. or the California Dream Act application. They're looking at the net value of those properties. So who's included in the family size? If we're completing the applications for your dependent student, then again, it's that student, the parents, and other dependent children that are living at home. Other people if living with the parent. So if there are the student's grandparents living at home and parents are providing more than 50% of support, then they are included in the household size. If support is not being provided, then they will not be included in the FAFSA family size or the Dream Act application. So I know it's clear as mud, but we will get through this. Independent students, again, if our students are over the age of 24, then again, they're doing their own FAFSA. Their children and spouse, again, will be completing and be included in the family size of the FAFSA. So now we've done the FAFSA. We've done the Dream Act application. For the FAFSA, what happens? It goes to federal processing. It, again, takes about 3 days for that application to process. And then the information is sent to the student in the submission summary. If a valid email was provided, then it will be sent to their email. And then the information goes to the college so that we can match up the information from either the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application and the admission, offer of admission, so that way we can offer a financial aid offer. Again, most schools will not be sending out financial aid offers until the student has been admitted to the college or university, basically giving them an offer of admission to attend in the fall. So when you look at the submission summary, again, the different sections, the eligibility overview, if they're eligible for loans or federal grants, it will not show what the schools will offer. Again, the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application is just the application that schools use. There is no money coming directly from the FAFSA. There is no money coming directly from the California Dream Act application. Okay, so school information, there's some next steps possibly. Some other outside scholarship organizations may require to see a copy. So from the submission summary, they can print it, students can print it and then submit it along with any other outside scholarship application. Once it's been processed after those 3 days, again, making any corrections, if students are applying to more than 20 schools, if a student is applying to 34, so once it's the FAFSA or the Dream Act application has been processed, students receive the submission summary. That's the time when students can go back onto the websites, either the federal or state of California, and delete those first set of 20 schools and then add the next 14. Okay. If there's some other information that is required from the college or the university's financial aid office, then you can possibly take a look at that. They may ask you to provide more information, so please make sure you read all the information that is sent to the student. So, special circumstances. Looking at the FAFSA, it's pretty straightforward. It's asking for information from the taxes from 2 years ago. So it's looking for the 2024 tax information. Things may have changed between 24 and 2026. So that information cannot go on either the FAFSA or the Dream Act application. Information such as this needs to be submitted directly to the financial aid office. So you can give them a call. You can look at their websites to see what the process is to submit information, because again, if there was a change in income from 2024 and changes happen 25 or even currently in 2026, each school could look at this information differently and then require various types of supporting documentation. So again, this does not go on the federal application. It does not go on the California Dream Act application, but there's another application that some schools, mostly private schools, will require in addition to the FAFSA, and that's the CSS profile. That is a more detailed application, and it does have a space for explaining any special circumstances. Now, with the CSS profile, it's only for about 200 schools across the country. In California, it's a handful of schools: University of Southern California, University of Santa Clara, Occidental, some of the Claremont schools. Again, 400 questions or so. It asks for everything, versus the FAFSA, the federal application, or the California Dream Act application, is only looking at the income and assets as reported on the federal income tax return. Okay. So talked again about some other resources. Studentaid.gov is the federal website to complete the federal application. California Student Aid Commission, csac.ca.gov, is actually the website to the California Student Aid Commission's general information. It is not the Dream Act application, but it does have the link available. Again, visiting the financial aid offices of the schools that your students are looking to apply or have been admitted. Again, bringing cookies, candy, flowers. I'm just kidding. To the offices will make them happy, but again, it's just looking at the information on the FAFSA or the Dream Act application to offer any additional aid, but they may have some insights. Your high school counselors absolutely have all the information, have a lot of other resources. FAFSAWeb.com, scholarships.com, those are the two largest national databases for scholarships outside of the school institution. Some benefits for the VA bill, GI Bill, CalVet, again for state of California. FinAid.org has just more general information about different kinds of financial aid, a little bit more in depth than this very short presentation. CSSprofile.collegeboard.org, again, that is for the CSS profile and only for a handful of other schools across the country that require this additional application. And I skipped over the WUI, the WICHI. WUI is the Western Undergraduate Exchange. And this is for the colleges, the states on the western part of the United States, that we have this agreement that they will not charge our students out-of-state tuition, but it would be charged at about no more than 150% of in-state tuition. Clear as mud? So again, this is the website. This is the QR code that you can check to see the different schools that do have this Western Undergraduate Exchange program. Again, we can go to Idaho, we can go to the Dakotas, we can go to Guam or Hawaii. Again, so looking at the in-state tuition versus being charged because you're coming from out of state. Okay, so coming up with July 1, 2026, the One Big Beautiful Bill changed a few things for federal financial aid. There is what's called a Parent Plus loan. And in the past, students who need additional assistance, parents can borrow almost up to the cost of attending a particular school. After July 1, it's only $20,000 per year. And the lifetime limit per that one student is $65,000. Please don't ask me how they come up with that number, because 4 years times 20 is 80, in my opinion, but they're saying only $65,000. Okay. And so now, a couple of things. If you have questions about your specific situation, please feel free to email me. That is my email at cmanuel@samuelmerritt.edu. And if you ask any financial aid administrator any financial aid question, their typical answer will be, it depends, or I don't know. It depends on the school, depends on your situation. I don't know because I only work at San Merritt currently, but I do have friends at other schools and I can find out. Again, this information, you will have the PowerPoint, and it will be on the website as well as sent out, I believe.
Yes. Okay. So like we said, if it's a very, very specific to you and your family question, please send her an email, and we can get those specifics ironed out, especially if it is more sensitive information. If you do have a little bit more general information, feel free to use the Q&A box, and we'll try to answer some of those live. One that I did answer in the Q&A box already, but it was, do you or can you fill out both the FAFSA and the California Dream Act, or do you only fill out one?
Only one. So again, the federal application, the FAFSA, is for students that are U.S. citizens, permanent resident aliens, and the California Dream Act is for students that are either underdocumented or undocumented, don't have a social security number. So again, it will be one or the other.
All right, please send us questions.
I think I stunned them.
There's a lot of information.
There is a lot of information.
One of the things I did want to kind of note for our students especially, please use a personal email when creating that FSA ID. If it is something that you're going to be needing to use for the next, 4 years, filling out the FAFSA or California Dream Act, you are not going to have access to your school email after graduation. So please use your personal email address when creating that student ID. Okay. Can you speak about the opt-out form if you do not want to rely on federal aid or needs-based aid?
So the opt-out form, again, is a state of California requirement that all students attending schools must complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application, or you have to complete the opt-out form through the school. Both applications, the FAFSA and the DREAM Act application, are free. So again, for the first year, completing the FAFSA, no harm, no foul. It will give you an idea of what kinds of free funding that students can get, either from federal Pell Grants or state of California. Again, a lot of schools still look at those applications to determine their financial aid, their need-based scholarships and grants. They may not look at it for any of the merit-based, but sometimes a lot of schools still do that. If students are looking at some of the, for example, the Ivy League schools, Harvard, or even here, Santa Clara University, they will require either the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application, and they will also require the CSS profile. So again, if don't feel like may be eligible for any federal aid, again, taking a look and see what is available. Again, no harm, no foul. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, even though they are separated, they can still do the FAFSA and be eligible to take out Parent Plus loans. So in order to take out and use the Parent Plus loan, a FAFSA has to be completed.
There was a follow-up question regarding the filling out either the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application. Is it required that they pull your tax record for FAFSA, or can you manually provide that information as well?
You can definitely provide that information yourself manually, but it may trigger some of the schools to require you to submit your tax information versus just automatically authorizing IRS to transfer the information for you. So you students and families, when you transfer the information, you don't actually see it being transferred. You'll just see that it has been done. It'll tell you it was completed, and only the schools will be able to see that information.
Okay. We have heard that applying for financial aid could negatively impact admission when competing with other students with similar qualifications. Is that true in any way?
It depends on some of the schools. Some schools may be considered need aware, and most schools are considered need blind. So, what does that mean? Yes, they will look and see what is available on the FAFSA to see, do we commit to the student, we admit them. So, looking at the schools, the majority of them will be considered need blind, so they don't look at the finances of the family. But again, it's been my experience, in my humble opinion, it's some of those top tier schools that are looking at the CSS profile that may be looking at that before submitting or sending out admission. So they would do that at the same time. It will see the admission offer and an offer of financial aid.
Okay. Is the CSS profile applicable for H4 visa students?
That's a good question. I have not yet worked at a school that required a CSS profile. So again, looking at the various websites of the schools, universities, colleges that your student is looking to apply, if they require the CSS profile, but then again, they will also have to submit the FAFSA, especially for out-of-state schools.
We have the next question. You mentioned the new limits are 65K. What are options we can look at if our student needs more than that to finish 4 years?
So in addition to the federal Parent Plus loan, there are other private student loans available. It could be private loans in the name of the student that need a cosigner. There could be private loans for parents. So basically a private Parent Plus loan. And there's other loan products out there, education products for our lovely aunts and uncles and grandparents that want to help and support the student. So there are those different products out there. The schools will definitely have more information. They typically have lists available of the private loans that students and parents have been using at that particular school. So that information will be there, and you can ask that of the financial aid offices and the administrators and counselors at their various colleges and universities.
One of the other things I wanted to make sure to point out is that Cal High's website for college and career, I've got a curated list of at least 80 scholarships that are very specific to our area. So pretty much go into calhigh.net in the search window, put in the word scholarship or something, and it's an ongoing document. It's sorted by date due. There are some that you can't do now because it was due today. But we had a student last year who ended up doing that once a week. He'd come by, he got $16,000 worth of private scholarshiping because no one else was applying for them.
You also post those in school links for the students, correct?
I do not put that in school links because it's
Okay.
more of a school specific thing. School links tends to have broad brush across the country. I'm focusing in on ones that are Bay Area, Contra Costa, or SRV USD. And lots of times when, as a student, you don't think you qualify, You can if no one else applied for that scholarship. And the typical scholarship amount that I post is roughly $1,000. I know just within our area, there's ones that are for everything from specific churches. There are ones for, there's one for students that are female over 5'10". There's other ones that are related to ethnicity and certain careers people are going into. And one has you open up a credit line at a credit union. You're not requesting any money, but you can get a scholarship just from paying attention. Your parent doesn't have to be a realtor for you to get the Contra Costa County Realtors scholarship.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll send that link to her website when we send a follow-up email to this presentation, just so it's easy access. I also wanted to note that if you are within our or like working for our district as a parent, we typically do have district employee scholarships for our students as well. So keep that in mind. I got one from my mom, so just wanted to throw that in there as well. Going back to our Q&A, we have a question of, do both parents, if married, need to set up an FSA ID account, or can one parent, is just one parent sufficient?
One parent is definitely sufficient. Again, thinking about if one parent only has a 65,000 limit of federal plus loan, there's another parent who can also take out a plus loan and help that student. So again, something else to look at. So again, married, filing joint, only one FSA ID and password is required. Also going back to, for example, for students looking for outside scholarships, again, fastweb.com or scholarships.com, being that they're national databases, students would log in, create a profile, dark hair, glasses, brown eyes, looking at major hobbies. I always recommend having a separate email address for all those scholarships so that once they start sending all the different applications, it's not getting lost in a primary email. So again, Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail, those are free. So again, they can start sending all the applications there. It's all in one place. You can take a look. Underwater basket weaving, does that, for me, yes or no? Again, looking at all the different kinds of scholarships that are available.
Okay. Another question, we hold working visa L1, kids are L2 visa, so we're not eligible for FAFSA or DREAM Act application. What should we do? Do we have to fill in the opt-out form because of that?
I do believe so. It has to be, again, it is a state mandate to complete the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application. So this is one of those circumstances where then, yes, you have to opt out.
Okay. And then options for them for financial aid would be going more the private route and scholarships and etc.
Exactly. Again, looking at the different schools that you are attending, they may have separate applications for scholarships. Again, alumni, if you are an alum from a particular college or university, they may have scholarships, mom and dad, for your students, if they are attending the same school that you went to.
Another thing that does come up with several of our students, I went to International University, and so it is a little bit different. If you are applying, for instance, University of Toronto, if the student has dual citizenship, you are seen at University of Toronto as a full Canadian citizen, so you are eligible for all of their scholarships. If you're an American applying there, you're eligible for none but one scholarship. And we do have students that typically apply to at least, I would say, a minimum of 3, sometimes 4 international universities. So it's very helpful to have your student aware of what their citizenship possibilities are when they're applying, because they are toggling both international and domestic scholarshiping potentially.
Okay. Okay. follow-up question from earlier. Given that they do consider the CSS profile, would it be advantageous to submit it after an offer is made, or an offer cannot be made unless the CSS profile is filled out?
If the school requires a CSS profile, it must be submitted before a financial aid offer can be given to the student. A lot of the schools, the CSS profile was due in December, I believe. I think Stanford had a very early deadline date. So again, checking the websites of the schools, colleges, universities, if they require the CSS profile, again, it's the majority of them are private schools, or going to the College Board website to review which schools require it.
Okay. And then, so if the student and parents need to need separate FAFSA and CSS profile accounts, if so, how do they link the parent and the student?
So it's one application. There's basically one FAFSA. It's the student's FAFSA. So once the student completes their portion, they started it, they completed it, then they send the invitation to the parent's email or send them the link directly to the FAFSA for the parent to complete their portion. So it's not separate applications unless mom and dad, you're going back to school and you need your own FAFSA or DREAM Act application, then that's when it's considered separate applications.
Mhm. All right. And then are there scholarships that would cover room and board if you have tuition covered?
It depends. And I don't know about the schools that you are looking at. So a lot of times schools would just offer tuition scholarships. So for example, the Cal Grant. If a student is receiving a Cal Grant A, that will cover the tuition at UC, CSUs, but not at a private school. Because again, private school is a little bit higher than what the amount of the Cal Grant A for a private school. Currently, the amount for private independent colleges, the award for a Cal Grant A is about 9,000, maybe 9,400. And again, looking at private schools, it can go anywhere from up to 50 to 60,000 just for tuition itself. Not including room and board, not including books.
And I know there are some scholarships that, not a lot of them, but some of them will like cut a check to the family or the student, and it's to be used for school related expenses, and that would be considered as part of that. But some of them will be sending the check directly to the financial aid office, and that may or may not be applicable for room and board. So it really depends. Follow-up question, what if you miss the CSS profile deadline?
Contact the school that requires that CSS profile. And then they will walk you through the various options in order to be eligible for their particular financial aid.
One of the other things that's interesting, you had mentioned WUI earlier. Specific schools that are part of WUI will also ramp up your scholarship eligibility based on your SAT sometimes, or on your GPA, or a combination of them. So they'll have this chart that goes straight up that you can see on their site to see if I've got a 3.9 GPA and I scored a 1300 on my SAT, I'm going to get incrementally more money towards scholarshiping than if I had different scores.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. Scrolling through again. We do have about 7 minutes left of the presentation time, so if you do have any more questions, please let us know. We're here for you. I'm actually adding the links of the other resources Cora had in the presentation in the Q&A chat box just for ease, but we will be sending out the presentation and links in a separate email. But just in case, I had a couple people asking for links to what we were talking about specifically.
And again, there's a lot of information on the World Wide Web. Again, please make sure they are reputable websites. There are entities and people out there that are not so nice and will say, yeah, just go ahead and send us your social security number and your mother's maiden name and go ahead and send us $500 and we'll take care of you. Don't do that, especially not sending out your social security number out in the atmosphere, because what is that going to be? That is going to be identity fraud. So I already have had a student at a different school. Their parent was telling me that they could not complete a FAFSA because someone already took that student's social security number and had already gotten aid based on that application.
Hmm.
Also, it's financial aid. You should not have to provide your credit card number to fill out an application. Financial aid should be free. So keep that in mind as well. That is usually my number one red flag. This is not reputable for any kind of scholarship if they're asking for for money for you to get money.
Years ago, there was a FAFSA.com website that charged $85 to complete the free application for federal student aid. So luckily, FAFSA.com now goes straight to actually the federal government. So again, you won't need to put in a credit card to do a free application. First F, free application, federal student aid.
Okay. Well, I want to take a couple moments to say thank you to everyone who participated in the meeting, are here wanting to learn this information because it is a wild world out there going into the realm of college. And so really appreciate your time this evening, spending it with us and getting this really, really useful information. We will be posting this on our website, on our YouTube. We'll be sending it out to families. So if you have any follow-up questions, we'll also include our and Cora's contact information for very, very detailed or specific circumstantial situations for you and your family. She would probably be the best, being able to see that from the college end of things. But Miss Nichols and I are absolutely here to support you all as well. So let us know if you have any questions post this meeting, and we'll send out the resources sometime tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just keep the space open if there is anyone who is waiting for more people to leave before asking their questions.
As usual, seamless, Cora.
It's the final countdown.
Okay, doesn't look like anyone else is adding any questions. So we just want to say thank you again, and I will go ahead and end this meeting.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.